Sorry, and I just want to check. We haven't started yet, right? I see. Good. Okay. I saw a couple of faces talking, but I couldn't tell if I was doing something wrong. Thank you.
Sorry, I'd like to call to order the Special Audit Committee, and I'd start with our land acknowledgement. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge that we meet on the traditional land of Treaty 6 territory and acknowledge the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory for centuries, such as Cree, Dene, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Nakota Sioux, as well as Métis and Inuit, and now settlers from around the world. I'll start with a roll call of committee members. Mayor Sohi is not with us today. I'm here. Councillor Knack.
Good afternoon.
Councillor Principe.
Hello.
Councillor Rutherford.
Good afternoon.
And Mr. Burrows.
I'm here.
And is Mr. Edmonston online?
I'm here too, thank you.
Good afternoon. And then I see that we also have Councillor Salvador.
Hello.
And Councillor Jans.
Hello.
And am I missing anybody else? Councillor Tang.
Hello.
And Councillor
And I'm with you too.
Hello. Okay, so if I can have somebody move adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Thank you. And are there any protocol items?
Point of order, I think we need to maybe list the additions.
Oh, I'm
for
sorry. Thank you.
The adoption of the agenda.
That is correct. So it's in the summary of agenda changes.
Okay, I'll just read them out then. The additions are the City of Edmonton 2021 Consolidated Financial Statements and KPMG 2021 Audit Findings Report and the External Auditor Non-Audit Services Request, which will remain private pursuant to Section 16 and 25 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act.
And then we also need to vote.
We can vote, please.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes. And that's carried. And now we'll move on to select items for debate. Did anybody want to select items? Well, Sorry, I don't see you on the, because I'm not in there. I'm sorry. Councillor Principe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I just removed myself to let Councillor Knack, but I will I would like to select 3.1 and 3.2. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, and now can we move to, oh, and I'm sorry, Councillor, no, Knack is gone.
No other items, but I'll move the remaining items.
Thank you. And if we can vote on the other reports not selected.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. And that's carried. And would the clerk please read back what reports have been passed?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This afternoon, the Audit Committee has passed the recommendations of the following reports without debate. Item 4.1, External Auditor Non-Audit Services Request. Do I have to read the addendum as well?
Okay, thank you. And now we will move on to any requests to speak? No, thank you. Just looking at my notes. All right, and any specific requests for specific time on agenda? So
There are none.
pretty skeleton agenda here. All right, so public reports now. We'll move on to 3.1, the City of Edmonton 2021 Consolidated Financial Statements and Administration. You have a presentation?
We do have a brief presentation.
Okay, so if we can go ahead with that, please.
Good afternoon. The report before you addresses our formal legislated 2021 financial reporting. It includes the draft consolidated financial statements for the City of Edmonton, along with management's responsibility for financial reporting and the independent auditor's report. Also included in this report is the draft financial statement present discussion and analysis, which provides additional background to support an understanding of the consolidated financial results. I'll pass it to Harm Rai, who will walk you through a brief presentation which will cover some of the key differences between our legislative reporting and our financial performance reporting.
Thanks, Stacey. The consolidated financial statements before you have been prepared by management in accordance with the Canadian Public Sector Accounting Standards, PSAS, as required by the Municipal Government Act. The MGA requires the financial statements to be made public by May 1st the following the fiscal year reflected in the financial statements. So in this case, the 2021 financial statements must be posted on the city's website by May 1st, 2022. The statements are required to be audited by an external auditor with findings presented to Audit Committee. The city's external financial statement auditor is KPMG. The auditor will issue an auditor's report on the financial statements, assessing whether the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the consolidated financial position of the entity as of December 31st, 2021. These financial statements are most commonly used by academics, financial institutions, other municipalities, and other levels of government to assess the city's financial health. More summarized financial reporting is provided through the Financial Report to Citizens, which includes highlights from the more detailed financial statements and provides citizens a summary of the city's financial health. That document is created and produced after the statements are reviewed by Audit Committee and approved by City Council. Next slide. The legislative financial statements presented here today reflect a different presentation of financial information than the quarterly performance reports that are provided to City Council every quarter. Budgets are developed with a focus on ensuring the city raises sufficient funds to support and build and operate the city, and therefore the city financial performance reporting focuses on a comparison of actual results to the budget. The first main difference is that the legislative reporting that you have in front of you today includes all the organization within the city's consolidated reporting entity. These organizations manage their own budgets and have their own respective boards. The quarterly performance reporting provided to City Council only includes the City of Edmonton legal entity, for which Council approves the budget. The other key differences between reporting are in expenses, where the legislated financial statements include non-cash expenses such as amortization, and they exclude transfers to and from reserves, transfers between operating and capital budgets, and debt principal payments. These differences are identified in Note 28 to the financial statements, reconciling the 2021 budget to the 2021 financial statement budget presentation. Next slide. The financial statements reflect city departments as well as a number of other organizations and enterprises accountable for administration of their financial affairs and resources to the City of Edmonton. EPCOR, a subsidiary corporation of the city, is accounted for on a modified equity basis, consistent with the generally accepted accounting treatment for government business enterprises. EPCOR reports the results in accordance with international financial reporting standards. under the modified equity basis, EPCOR's accounting principles are not adjusted to conform to those of the city, and inter-organization transactions and balances are not eliminated. These financial statements exclude trust assets under administration for the benefit of external parties as well. Next slide. The preparation of financial statements include amounts based on the best estimates and professional judgment of management. A summary of instances where management has made significant assumptions and estimates is provided in Attachment 3 to the report and are also included in Note 1 to the financial statements under significant accounting policies. There are several new standards that will be coming into effect in the coming years. Management continues to assess these standards to determine their impact on the financial statements. The future accounting standards are discussed in Note 1 to the financial statements. Next slide. KPMG, the external auditor, has identified one uncorrected audit misstatement as reflected in the auditor's report. I will walk you through a brief timeline of events that resulted in the misstatement and then also explain the accounting difference. In 2019, for accounting purposes, the city reflected an impairment of the Metro Line LRT signaling asset. The impairment was recognized as a $56 million write-down of the asset as of December 31st, 2019. A portion of the asset had been funded through the provincial Green Trip funding. The provincial grant agreement requires funds to be used on an asset that will remain in use for at least 10 years. As a result, the province requested that the city reallocate the funds to other eligible projects. During 2020 and 2021, the city worked with the province to reallocate Green Trip funds to other projects. In 2021, the province approved funding to be reallocated to the Stadium LRT station upgrade and diesel bus purchases. The related funding swap to reallocate the funds from the Metro Line LRT project to these new projects was approved by Council in the fall 2021 Supplementary Capital Budget Adjustment. Also in 2021, administration reversed recognition of the Green Trip grant revenues of $29 million required to offset future Stadium LRT station upgrade costs and diesel bus purchase expenditures. So the reversal was done in 2021 for accounting purposes. KPMG has assessed the derecognition of the grant revenue as a misstatement related to a prior period. The capital revenue should have been derecognized in 2019 at the same time the asset was impaired. However, administration reversed the revenue in 2021. This is essentially a timing difference in the derecognition of revenue and does not impact the city's financial results at the end of this year. KPMG has noted the misstatement in the audit findings report, but does not expect the city to adjust prior period reporting and are comfortable with the reversal being done in 2021. Both administration and KPMG agree that the amount is not material to the financial statements. However, this is still an accounting misstatement and needs to be identified as such. Next slide. In terms of next steps, subject to recommendation of the Audit Committee, the 2021 City of Edmonton audited consolidated financial statements are scheduled to be presented to City Council for approval at their meeting on April 19th. The annual report will be available on the City's website shortly after their approval. The deadline for submission of audited consolidated financial statements legislated in the Municipal Government Act is May 1st, 2022. The Provincial Financial Information Return reporting template is being finalized and will be filed with the Minister after their approval of the financial statements. Summarized financial reporting to citizens will be provided with reference to the full financial annual report later this year. The financial report to citizens provides a condensed analysis of the financial statement and budget information in a shorter, more accessible format. KPMG will provide an annual audit management letter to Audit Committee later in the year outlining any observations and recommendations with respect to findings as a result of the 2021 financial statement audit. Management will also provide a report to Audit Committee with responses to the auditor's observations and recommendations. This concludes our presentations, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Do we have any questions for administration? Mr. Burrows?
Thank you. Two questions around the LRT line misstatement. I guess the first one relates to the controls. that around, you know, how we've identified and will continue to identify whether or not the requirements under the contracts, these types of funding agreements, are met or will continue to be met. Can you just give us a sense of the control structure around that, please?
Not with respect to the write-off, but just in general, how we ensure that conditions requiring recognition within the contracts are met?
Correct.
So as part of our financial controls, we do have a dedicated accounting staff that works and is familiar with these contracts for all of the LRT contracts. So they're reviewing the contracts on a regular basis. We've been involved in the procurement, and at each stage of decision-making, we examine the contracts to determine whether any recognition of anything is required, whether it's a fine or a penalty, or in this particular case, we had an event that gave rise to the asset no longer being in use, which triggered our write-down, our methodology for looking at write-down. So I would say like a dedicated team, and then their work is reviewed by myself and Harm.
And you're comfortable at this point that there are no other funding agreements with the GOA or otherwise that would have similar kind of continuing use criteria that might give rise to additional misstatements in the financial statements?
So there are other, it is a common requirement in our funding agreements with our funders that that assets must remain in service, which we were aware of with this particular example, and is what triggered our initial discussion with the province. I think where we applied judgment in 2019 was we believed that we could transfer that funding to another existing project, and they've required us to do a future project. But we are aware, and we do have a grants team that negotiates the agreements with the grant, with the province, and flags those types of things for us.
Thank you.
Well, no other questions. I guess that concludes our questions for administration. Would someone like to move the recommendation in the report?
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Knack. Please vote. Sorry, I got to open up my window. I'm a yes.
We have all the votes.
Please display the votes. And that is carried. Okay, we're not taking the private report from KPMG.
Madam Chair, we have 3.2 that was selected.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, I'm just scrolling through my notes. I'm sorry. Whoops. Okay, and is there a presentation from admin on this one?
So administration wouldn't give a presentation, but I defer to Mr. Borelli and Ms. Cox on whether they have a presentation from KPMG.
And are they online?
They are.
Yes, we do not have a formal presentation, but we had a copy of our audit findings report is included in the package to the committee, and we can speak to the details of the report.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have any questions from committee of KPMG? Okay, okay, Mr. Burrows.
Thank you. Just one question to Mr. Borelli or Ms. Cox. In terms of the misstatement, albeit insignificant, immaterial to the overall financial statements of the city, question for you as it relates to timing when it became known to the auditor. Because if I'm thinking about this correctly, the misstatement would have been observed related to a 2019 decision, probably would have been or should have been seen in the 2020 financial statements, if I'm not misunderstanding it. When was it? When did it come to be on KPMG's radar, and how?
It came to our radar this year with the reversal of the related revenue. The amounts weren't material and were spread out over multiple years. And so essentially what happened is this year when the government contributions, the decision was final and the amounts were reversed by administration, we began to have the discussion that those related to a previous year, but because the, consistent with administration's comment, because the final decision from the province did not arise until 2021, it was dealt with fully within the current fiscal year.
Thank you. Would there be procedures, audit procedures planned that would help to uncover these as part of your engagement work, or would it be reliant on the CFO's team and the city's management team to disclose these, in this case, as a part of a reversal?
I would say it's a combination of both. We need to have the discussions where we'd be highlighting any of these matters that would be relevant for us to be aware of. And as well, in our testing of the city's financial statements, we do a significant work over the grant revenues received and recognized in the year, which would include a review of significant grant agreements in the various projects they're allocated. The part that is a bit complex is the agreements are funding numerous underlying projects, so it's those links that go through.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Edmonston?
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you. I want to address Appendix 6, which is the current development section, which is, I believe, page 24 of the report. And there is the discussion of some six upcoming changes to the public sector accounting standards. And I guess my first question is, are any of those into effect beginning in this calendar or this fiscal year, or is the first one the next fiscal year?
They begin to take effect in 2023, and that is disclosed in the notes to the statements that administration highlighted. So nothing came into effect for the current fiscal year.
And as I look through all of those, what is the expectation for the impact on the city's financial statements? How material will the changes be as a result of those coming in?
The most significant impact will be through the asset retirement obligations. I would say that's the one where there will be a material impact. However, a lot of it is increasing an asset and a liability for the expected cost to retire underlying assets. And then these get drawn down over the remaining useful life of the underlying asset. So while it'll have a big impact in year one, it will then not have as significant of an impact in subsequent years.
Okay, thank you. And that I'm not surprised at that response, but then I see that there is in the very last page, the asset retirement obligations, implementation milestones, and it's all laid out there as to the phase 1 and phase 2, the project. Is KPMG satisfied that administration can meet those timelines and that everything will be in place in order for the appropriate accounting starting in financial year end 2023?
Yeah, so I think I would highlight that those are standard timelines. At this point, nothing has been finalized. Our conversations with administration have largely been obtaining an understanding of the status of their implementation plan. And we've discussed the importance of implementing project milestones for our team to review the project as it progresses, rather than upon its completion, to ensure we're involved in the project throughout its duration. We have no concerns with management's ability to meet our proposed timelines, and we have lots of ongoing discussions throughout the year where we'll continue to monitor that and ensure we are apprised of the status of the project.
Does administration have any concerns with meeting the timelines as outlined here?
No, similar to how Ms. Cox had responded, we're comfortable with the timelines and we're making progress towards these timelines, so we have no concerns.
Okay, thank you. I have one general overarching question for KPMG, and they may have heard this question from me before. In the course of your audit, has anything come to the attention of KPMG that is not reflected in the audit findings report that this committee or City Council should be made aware of?
No, there's nothing that has come to our attention that has not been highlighted in our report.
And if something were to come to your attention, which was of a confidential nature, who would you let know about that material?
So I have my mic back, Caitlin, so I'm happy to answer it. So my apologies for that. So on your first question, Owen, we executed our plan in accordance with what we presented to you earlier, and there were no exceptions to that. And to the extent that we were aware of something that needed to be brought to the audit committee attention, we would speak directly with the audit committee chair.
Would you speak to others than the audit committee chair, would be my question. Would
yes.
The whole audit committee be informed?
Yeah, we'd ask the audit committee chair, after speaking to him, to organize a meeting with the entire audit committee so that they're aware of the facts that were presented to us.
Okay, I want to make sure that the whole audit committee would be informed.
Most
that the audit committee chair could not, if he so or she so desired, just handle the issue by themselves.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Evanson, and making sure that things don't get brushed under the rug. All right, any other questions for KPMG? Okay, well, that concludes our questionings. Now we'll, do we want to move on to questions for administration on this? That's what my notes say, but I don't think so.
I believe that was combined administration and KPMG.
Okay. So we can go ahead and take a motion.
Yes.
If there's no further questions, would someone like to move? Thank you.
Sure, I'll move that the April 12th, 2022 Financial and Corporate Services Report, FCS 01194, be received for information.
Thank you. Please vote.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes. And that is carried. Okay, and we're not going into private on that one. All right. All right, and there is no other notice of motions or customary notices?
They're not, and it's not on our agenda because this is a special meeting.
Okay, so we can adjourn.